Good morning. It's great to be in church this morning, isn't it? As Stuart was bringing us that word, in fact, before Stuart got up, as we were worshipping, I had this real sense that faith is rising in the building, and faith is rising in our hearts. And when Stuart brought that word from God, he talked about the fact that we need to rise in faith. That's one of the things we need to do, and God loves it when we step out in faith. It says it in his words that it pleases God when we sense we've heard his voice and we step out in faith. We're starting a new series this morning about the book of Ecclesiastes, which is one of the 5 wisdom books in the Bible, along with Job, Psalms, Proverbs, and Songs of Songs. And this book was written about 925 BC, and the title for my talk this morning, which is on the first couple of chapters, is really exciting. It is called Everything is Meaningless. What a great title that is. As I was thinking about that, I've got an image which I'm going to, This to me sums up meaningless. This poor little, is that a hamster? Hamster, yeah. Poor little hamster is just running around in this wheel and getting nowhere. He's never going to get anywhere. It's like just a meaningless activity. So we're just going to look this morning at these first couple of chapters of Ecclesiastes. Everything is meaningless. So I'm going to read the first 10 verses of Ecclesiastes 1. It says this: the words of the teacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem. We know from that who this is that's writing this book. It's King Solomon, David's son. The one who, when God asked, I can give you anything, what do you want? He said, I'd like wisdom. I'd like to be able to lead these people wisely. And this book is written like a journal, like a diary. It's split into 3 main areas: Solomon's searching for meaning, Solomon's thoughts and sayings, and Solomon's eventually his final conclusions and solution to this thought about everything is meaningless. He's widely regarded as one of the wisest men in history. He was a really smart guy. And I've noticed it's often quite good to pay attention to really smart people, because you tend to get on all right when you listen to really smart people. He was a really smart person. Okay, he goes on. Meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. What I think Solomon's doing here is like setting the scene. This is really boomy this morning. Can we turn it down a little bit? He's like setting the scene, as you often see in a film, where it starts with a scene and then the whole film unpacks that scene. And Solomon starts with this dramatic saying here and then spends 12 chapters revealing why he's saying that and what that actually means. So he goes on. What do people gain from all their labours, at which they toil under the sun? Generations come, generations go, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun sets, and hurries back to where it rises. The wind blows to the south and turns to the north. Round and round it goes, ever returning on its course. All streams flow into the sea, yet the sea is never full. To the place the streams come from, there they return. All things are wearisome, more than one can say. The eye never has enough of seeing, nor the ear it's full of hearing. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. Nothing new under the sun. What Solomon's saying there is, on earth, in the natural sense, there's nothing new. It's just repeating. Day comes, day goes. Morning comes, afternoon comes, evening comes, night comes, morning comes. It just carries on. And it would appear that he's quite depressed by life. He thinks it's meaningless. Other versions of the Bible, other translations, use the word vanity, which means meaningless, worthless, futile. Everything is futile. Everything is worthless. He talks about the fact that all our achievements are like a mist. It just disappears. There's nothing solid. There's nothing concrete there. And Solomon talks about four key areas in the verses that I've got to look at. So we're just going to really quickly look at those four areas that he says are meaningless. The first one is wisdom and knowledge. He says this, I said to myself, look, I have increased in wisdom more than anyone who has ever ruled in Jerusalem before me. I have experienced much of wisdom and knowledge. Then I applied myself to the understanding of wisdom and also of the madness and folly. But I learnt that this too is chasing after the wind. Chasing after the wind. It's a waste of time. What is the point of learning? What is the point of life? That question's been asked by philosophers throughout the ages. The Greeks, the Romans, the Enlightenment era, contemporary philosophers. What is the point of it all? Education, learning, qualifications. These are actually really great things in their place. Nothing wrong with them at all. In fact, we as like the human race have progressed through learning and knowledge, and it's a good thing. But it isn't the thing. It's not the thing. And spending all our time and energy acquiring more knowledge isn't going to satisfy us. Solomon said, I tried that, didn't work. And he's smart, remember. He moves on. He thinks, try something else. Pleasure. This is what he said. I said to myself, come now, I will test you with pleasure to find out what is good. But that also proved to be meaningless. I amassed silver and gold for myself, and the treasure of kings and provinces. I acquired male and female singers and a harem. 300 women in his harem, on top of 700 wives. That sounds like trouble to me. But like, he was just amassing things just for his pleasure. The delights of a man's heart. I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me. And all this wisdom stayed with me. I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labour, and this was the reward for my toil. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. This idea about pursuing pleasure is like a really 21st century thing. We are big into this. How do we do stuff that brings us pleasure and happiness? That is like Western culture, really. That is like the crux of Western culture. How can we eliminate pain and have pleasure and happiness? That's Western culture. And Solomon says, it doesn't work. I'm a really smart guy, remember. I've tried it. He's tried it on a greater level than we ever could in terms of the resources he had available, all these things. Tried it, doesn't work. Still leaves a hole in the soul. Let's move on. He says, I've noticed that actually whether you're really intelligent or really stupid, it doesn't actually matter, because you all end up in the same place, which is at the end of your days you die. Whether you are really smart or really stupid, it makes no difference. So in certain ways, pursuing wisdom is a bit of a waste of time if it's your sole goal, because we'll all end up in the same place. This too is meaningless. And then the fourth thing he talks about is work and toil. he says this. This is Solomon, the richest, wisest man on earth at the time, says, chapter 2, verse 17, "So I hated life." He had everything, and he hated life, because the work that he's done under the sun was grievous to me. All of it is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. I hated all the things I had toiled for under the sun, because I must leave them to the one that comes after me. So he had this understanding that he's not actually going to, even though you can amass stuff, you're not going to take it with you. You're going to leave it to the people that come after you. So I hated life. For many of us, work and careers are really important. We want to get on, we want to succeed, we want to have purpose and meaning in that, and a sense of achievement at getting somewhere, and that's fine. In its place, that is fine. If we are pursuing that because we think that will give our life meaning, Solomon says, you're wasting your time. It isn't going to give you meaning. It's okay in its place, but it is not going to give you meaning. It's not going to really give you purpose in life. It might satisfy you for a season, but ultimately it will leave us feeling empty, because once again, it doesn't touch our soul. It doesn't touch the deep part of us. It doesn't touch the place where we're desperately searching for purpose and meaning and relationship. We all have a sense of the dissatisfaction and disappointment that Solomon talks about here. As I say, he was on a different level. But we all have a sense of that nothing quite satisfies us. The advertising industry works on that principle, that if they can make you dissatisfied with what you've got, you'll buy what they're trying to sell you. So they will say that your old car is no longer any good. What you need is a new one, because it's faster, shinier, more economical, whatever. They work on this thing that there is dissatisfaction that actually resides in us, and they know it, and they work on it. And we know that we get things, even as kids. We have a toy, and then we see a bigger, brighter, shinier toy, and suddenly our toy doesn't look very good anymore, and we want the bigger one. And the reality is we don't really grow up, because when we grow up, all it is like we want the new, better, nicer, shinier phone or car or house or girlfriend or wife or husband or whatever, because that's like in us. We're after this next thing. Or we think, yeah, I'd be really happy if I didn't live in Dover, if I lived in London, or if I lived in New York, or if I lived in Sydney, or we've got this in us that something out there will be better. But Solomon says it won't. It won't actually make any difference, because we're trying to fix the wrong thing. We're focusing on the wrong thing. Solomon had these feelings. He had more money, more sex, more power than any of us will ever have. He had what are considered like the ultimate things in life. He had more of it than anyone else, and he ends up saying, but actually it's all meaningless. There is something missing. There is something we need to pursue. So why don't those things satisfy? And what is the meaning and purpose in life that we should be pursuing? People will tell us you need to look within yourself to find it. Find it within yourself, true meaning. You won't find it within yourself. People say, well, look around then. See if you can find purpose and meaning. You won't find purpose and meaning like that. We actually have to look up to find purpose and meaning, because none of these things satisfy our soul. We're looking in the wrong place. C.S. Lewis said, if I find my desires which nothing in this world can satisfy, The only logical explanation is that I was made for another world. He was another really smart man, by the way. Really smart man. So, searching for happiness, which is what we seem to want to do, we're actually searching for the wrong thing, because happiness, joy, fulfillment, meaning are actually byproducts of what we need to be searching for. We've got this God-shaped hole in our soul, and nothing else is ever going to fill that. We can throw as much at it as we like, but nothing will fit. Nothing else is going to change that. In Ecclesiastes 3, and I'm going past my brief now, I'll be getting in trouble, but we need to bring this back to a conclusion. It says, "What do workers gain from their toil? I have seen the burden that God has laid on the human race. He has made everything beautiful in its time." This is the key bit. "He has set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end." We can't fathom God, but God, our Creator, says, "I've put eternity in you." That is the thing that that is the thing that's going to give you meaning. When you understand, I put eternity in you, and that is about relating to me. That is when you'll find meaning. God has put eternity in us. And it says that we can't fathom what God's done. The Bible says God's ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. We're never going to understand God. But what we do need to understand is he is the source of meaning and purpose. And we need to connect with that. The final verses in Ecclesiastes say this. Solomon writes, "Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. This is the duty of all mankind." The end. That's how he finishes. The end. That is it. After all this searching, all this whatever, it comes down to fear God and keep his commands. Fear meaning trust. Put your faith in, put your hope in. Go all in with God. That's his conclusion to all this. That's the only way to find true meaning, is to immerse ourselves in God. To place God at the centre of our lives. That our desires and our wills are focused on keeping him there in the right place in our lives and investing our lives in God. That is the only way we will find true meaning. That is the only way where we will come to the place where we can then put all these other things in their place as well and enjoy them, because there's nothing wrong with hard work. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have happy experiences. There's nothing wrong with these things, but if they're our goal, that's wrong. But if we put God in the right place, these things can find a natural place in our lives, and we will find meaning. There's a great song that we sing here often. It says, "I've searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough." I mean, this is literally what Solomon's saying. This is a contemporary version of it. "Then you came along and you put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love." Because he's worked out there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing is better than you. That's the whole point of Ecclesiastes. We're going to dig into it loads more over the following few weeks, but that is what it's all about. If you want a life that has purpose and meaning, it's found by investing our lives in God. It's not found anywhere else. It's found in that place. And this morning, I'd love the band to come back up. We're gonna sing another worship song, maybe two. whatever. And I'd love us as we're worshipping just to search our own hearts and to rededicate ourselves to God. Say, God, I want you to be the focus, the priority in my life. Lord, I want to have a life that has purpose and meaning in you. And these other things will find their place. And I won't need to strive after them because they'll find their place. That God would guide us and lead us. And if you don't know God, if you don't have an experience of believing in Jesus, then you can do that this morning. The prayer guys will be here as we're singing. You can come and have a conversation with them, and you can come to faith this morning. You can rededicate your life this morning. If you want prayer for healing or something else, then just come forward as well. We believe that God still heals. Let's stand. Let's worship, and let's just respond to what God is speaking to us this morning.